Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to attempt to do chemistry, paper 2, multiple choice. We're going to be doing the February-March 2023 one. So this is the latest, the recent release from Cambridge. And we have 45 minutes to do it, so let's go. Question 1. Substance M is solid at 30 degrees Celsius. The substance is heated to 80 degrees Celsius and its temperature measured as it cooled down from room temperature. What is this graph called? This is called a cooling curve. And as you can see, as the time increases, the temperature decreases. If you look at the graph. So we know that the substance M is a solid at 30 degrees. So solid at 30, it should be somewhere here. It is at a solid state. Here, so we can see on the graph that in this part, it is already solid. And it is undergoing more temperature changes. But the question asks, between which time is substance M freezing? So when you do, when it asks you about freezing is a change of state. And change of states require energy. And that energy is going to be very constant. And therefore the temperature will not change during when it is freezing. Only when every single so if this is a solid, then this is the liquid. Only if all of the liquid has solidified, we can say that it will go under. Only when the liquid changes into solid completely, only when that happens, the temperature will continue to decrease. But the temperature will not change if you are having like a freezing, melting, boiling, evaporation, blah blah blah. So the time which substance is the substance between which times is substance and freezing, well, this is Q and R, because you see the temperature is constant, it's not changing. This tells us it is a change of state is happening, and this is freezing. Therefore, B is the answer. Question number 2, which of the gases has the fastest rate of diffusion? Well, this fastest rate of diffusion has to be, we have to find the MR of each substance. So ER is 40, C2H6 is 30, the HCl is 36.5, H2S is 34, and therefore the lowest MR has the highest rate of diffusion. So B is the correct answer. Question number 3, there are 2 stable isotopes of bromine. The mass number of isotope 1 is 79, the mass number of isotope 2 is 81. Which statement is correct? Well, isotope, remember, it is element of the same, they are basically the same elements, but which means they have the same number of proton, but different number of neutrons. Or you can say its mass number is different. And so here we can see that the isotopes has the same number of outer electrons. Yes, they have the same number of proton and electrons. So because it is a stable isotope, therefore D is the correct answer. Question number 4, which statement about ions and ionic bonds is correct? Well, bromine atoms form negatively charged bromide ions. This is correct because bromine, remember, has 7 outer electrons, and it needs 1 more electron to make the shell complete. And therefore, if it gains 1 electron, and since electron has a negative charge, it is going to form a negatively charged ion. And therefore, A is the correct answer. Question number 5, part of the periodic table is shown. Which type of chemical bonding is present in the oxide of F and the oxide of G? Now remember, when we look at the periodic table, you have to know the left side of the periodic table contains metals, the right side contains the non-metals, and the middle contains transition elements. And so if we look at the oxide of F, it's going to be metal. So metals can only form ionic bonds, ionic compounds, while the oxide of G, which is a non-metal, they can form a covalent compound. So C is the correct answer. Question number 6. Element X and Y react to form a compound. Element X loses 2 electrons, element gains 1 electron. What is the charge of the ions of X and Y? What is the formula of the compound? Well, element X loses 2 electrons. If we lose electron, the negative charge gets reduced. It gets reduced, therefore it becomes a positive. On the other hand, if you gain an electron, it becomes a negative because you're gaining that negative charge of an electron. And therefore, X is going to, since it says 2 electrons, it's going to be positively charged by 2 plus. This is X, and Y is going to gain 1 electron, so it's going to be negatively charged, so 1 minus. And therefore, the charge on X will be 2 plus, charge on Y will be minus. And the formula of the compound, well, there's a very easy cheat method to do this, and that is to put the X charge under the Y and the Y charge under the X. So basically X1, Y2, but we don't write the 1 here, so we just write it X, Y2, and therefore the B is the correct answer. Now let's move on. Which statement about graphite explains why it is used as an electrode? Now, electrode is used in electrolysis, and so why is it used in electrolysis? Well, this gives us a very big clue because it has to conduct electricity to the electrolyte, and therefore it needs to be able to conduct electricity, and that is a very important point. If it can conduct electricity, that means it has to have mobile electrons, and therefore D is the correct answer. Question number 8. Methane CH4 burns in air to form carbon dioxide and water. What is the balanced equation for this reaction? Well, it's not number 1 because it's not balanced, so let's look at number B. Why is B the right answer? Well, let's look at this. So CH4, first of all, I would check the number of carbon atoms first, and balance it out first. This is the order of priority, carbon atoms first. And then secondly, you check the hydrogen atoms. And lastly, you always check the oxygen at last, because oxygen is kind of very, how do I say this? It's really difficult to balance. Not difficult, but it is very annoying to balance. So we usually do the oxygen atoms last. So now let's see, there is CH4, there's 1 carbon atom on the left side and 1 carbon atom on the right side. So there's balance. We can take that off. And now we have 4 hydrogen in the left side, and we have 2 times 2 is 4, so 4 hydrogen atoms at the right side as well. So we can take that off. Now lastly, we have the oxygen. So oxygen, there are 4 oxygen on the left side and 2 plus 2, which is 4. So this is balanced, so B is the correct answer. Question number 9. The equation for the thermal decomposition of sodium hydrogen carbonate is shown. The MR of sodium hydrogen carbonate is 84. The MR of sodium carbonate is 106. In the experiment, 2.1 gram of sodium carbonate is heated, but not all of it decomposes. Remember, this is a very important point. Not all of it decomposes. So all of the carbon dioxide is collected and measured at room temperature and pressure. The total volume of carbon dioxide produced is 0.21 dm cubed. The volume of 1 mole of gas at room temperature and pressure is 2.4 dm cubed. What is the which statement is correct? Well, for this, we have to actually try to calculate a lot of things. The way I would like to do is by using the percentage yield. So remember, percentage yield, it is the actual yield over theoretical yield times 100%. And therefore, we have to use this to calculate. Firstly, we have to calculate the mole of hydrogen carbonate. So remember, mole is equal to mass over mR. And so if you want to calculate the mole of NaHCO3, it's going to be, remember the mass is 2.1, and the 84 is the mass number. The mass number. So it's going to be 0.025 mole. And so we can just, and from the equation we can see there's 2:1. We are going to have this mole ratio of NaHCO3 ratio Na2CO3, and we're going to the ratio is 2:1. So the mole of this hydrogen carbonate is actually 0.0125 mole. Remember, not all of the sodium hydrogen carbonate is decomposed. Therefore, this is only the theoretical yield. If it the mole that we calculated right now is not the actual mole, because not all of it decomposes. And the calculation right now, what we're doing is a theoretical yield. If it had decomposed altogether completely, this is what would it have produced, which is 0.0125 mole of sodium carbonate. Okay, now how does this tie? Okay, next we have to find, we have to put another mole ratio again, so which is Na2CO3 ratio CO2 is 1:1, and if Na sodium carbonate is 0.0125, then the carbon dioxide is also going to be 0.0125 moles. Now we know that carbon dioxide is also 0.0125 moles. We are going to erase this for a while. So carbon dioxide mole is also 0.0125. Okay. And now we have to find the mass of sodium carbonate. The mass of sodium carbonate, remember, mole is equal to mass over mR. So now mass is equal to mole times mR. And we got that sodium carbonate mole is 0.0125, and this mR is given to us in the question, which is 106. And when we multiply them together, we get 1.325, which is approximately 1.33. But you might be knowing the mass of sodium carbonate produced is not 1.33. This is what it would have been produced if all the sodium hydrogen carbonate is decomposed. But remember, the very important part in this question is that it's not all of it decomposes, and therefore this is only its theoretical mass. Okay, and then we also have to find the theoretical mass. Okay, let's write it at the top here. Let's write it at the top here. So the theoretical mass of Na2CO3 is going to be 1.33 grams. Okay, now we have to find the theoretical yield of the carbon dioxide. So the theoretical yield, which is basically mole is equal to volume over molar volume. And the mass, okay, so the volume, we want to find the volume. So the mole of carbon dioxide is 0.0125 mole. We want to find the volume, so we just switch up the this equation. So we are going to multiply that by the molar volume. Remember, the molar volume is always 24 dm cubed at room temperature and pressure. And when we multiply, we'll get 0.3. Now remember, in the question, it has given us the volume of carbon dioxide, which is 0.21. And 0.21 is the actual yield of carbon dioxide. And the 0.3 that we got here, it is the theoretical yield. And so if we multiply them 100% and find its percentage yield, we will find that it has a 70% yield. And remember, this 70% is going to be very important. 70% yield is going to be very important. And since carbon dioxide and hydrogen, since the percentage yield of CO2 is 70%, the percentage yield of Na2CO3 also has to be 70%. Why is this? Well, because if you see the mole ratio here, they are both 1:1. It has 1 mole is to 1 mole, and therefore they both share the same percentage yield. And so if we want to find the actual mass of sodium carbonate, we are going to multiply the theoretical mass by the percentage yield. So the theoretical mass we have gotten, which is 1.33, which is at the top here. Yes, the theoretical mass of sodium carbonate is 1.33. So we are going to multiply this 1.33 by this the percentage yield, and this is going to give us 0.931, which is the same as 0.93 grams. So this is going to be our final answer. And so it is correct. The mass of sodium carbonate produced is 0.93 grams. Okay. Now that was a very difficult question with lots of steps, but I hope you understand it. So question number 10, an electrolysis experiment is done using carbon electrodes. Hydrogen and oxygen are formed at the electron. So hydrogen and oxygen. Now remember, oxygen is only formed from 4 hydroxide ions. So what is the electrolyte? Well, the electrolyte aqueous copper 2 sulfate. Nope. Is a concentrated hydrochloric acid? Nope. Dilute aqueous sodium chloride? It could be, well, because dilute sodium chloride is Na plus, H plus, OH minus, and Cl minus. Now it says dilute, so chloride ion is not going to be discharged, but the OH ion is going to get discharged. And in the cations, the hydrogen ion is going to be discharged, so Na is not going to be discharged. And therefore hydrogen will form and oxygen will form. So C is the correct answer. Question 11, concentrated aqueous copper sulfate is electrolyzed using copper electrodes. Which ionic half equation describes the reaction taking place at the cathode? Well, at the cathode, remember, is the negative electrode, and remember cations, which is the positive ions, goes to the cathode. And therefore, let's write up all the possibilities first. There's going to be Cu2 plus, there's going to be H plus ion, and then in copper sulfate, so there's going to be SO4 2 minus, the sulfate ion. There's also going to be the hydroxide ion. And remember, the copper is below hydrogen in the reactivity series, so it's going to get selectively discharged. And remember, SO4 2 minus, the sulfate ions, nitrate ions never get discharged. And therefore, the hydroxide ion is going to get discharged. Now remember, it's at the cathode, so we have to find the positively charged ion, which is the cation. So the copper 2 plus is going to gain 2 electrons and it's going to turn back into copper solid in the cathode. So which equation is that? It is D. So D is the correct answer. Okay, question 12. When powdered sodium carbonate and aqueous ethanoic acid are mixed, the temperature of the mixture falls. Which statement about this reaction is correct? Well, if the temperature of the mixture falls of the mixture, then the surrounding temperature falls. This means that this is an endothermic reaction. Heat is being taken in, and therefore the temperature of the surrounding or the mixture falls down. So the reaction is endothermic. And if it's endothermic, one thing you should know is that in endothermic reaction, the delta H or the enthalpy change is always positive, and vice versa. This is for endothermic. And in exothermic, the delta H is always negative. And so the delta H has to be positive. So B is the correct answer. Question 13. Magnesium powder reacts with excess dilute hydrochloric acid to produce hydrogen gas. Which statement about this reaction are correct? Well, the smaller the particles of magnesium powder, the more slowly the hydrogen is going to be produced. No, this is wrong. The higher the temperature, the faster the magnesium powder disappears. Correct. The lower the concentration of hydrochloric acid, the faster the rate of reaction. This is completely wrong, because the lower the concentration, the rate of reaction will also be lower. Question statement number 4, the faster the magnesium powder disappears, the faster the rate of reaction. And therefore 2 and 4 is correct. So C is the correct answer. Question 14. The reaction between two aqueous compounds X and Y is slow and exothermic. The graph shows how the rate of reaction changes with time. A student suggests that the rate of reaction decreases with time because their activation energy decreases. Nope. The speed of the molecule of X and Y decreases. This is also nope. The concentration of both X and Y decreases with time. This is correct. Why? You may ask. This is because X and Y are both reactants. They are both reactants, and as times go on, as the time increases, the reactants are going to be used up. It's going to get used up, and therefore the concentration has to fall. And if the concentration falls, the rate also falls with it, and therefore 3 is the correct answer. So D is the correct. Okay. Hydrogen reacts with iodine to form hydrogen iodide. Which statement explains why the reaction is faster when pressure is increased at a constant temperature? Statement number 1, at higher temperature, the molecules are moving faster. This is not correct because it's not the temperature that's being increased. Okay, statement number 2, at high temperature, more of the molecules have the required activation energy. Again, it's not about the temperature, it is about the pressure. Statement number 3, at higher pressure, the molecules are closer together. This is correct. At higher pressure, the molecules collide more frequently. This is also correct. So 3 and 4 is correct, so D is the correct answer. Question number 6, ammonium sulfate is used as a fertilizer. This is made from ammonia and sulfuric acid. Well, the something is made by the something process in which it is used as a catalyst. Well, let's try to fill in the blanks. So the ammonia is made by the Haber process, in which iron is used as a catalyst, and so this is the wrong catalyst. So A and B are not the answer. Okay, let's try sulfuric acid. The sulfuric acid is made by the content process, in which vanadium oxide is used as the catalyst. This is correct. All 3 conditions are correct, so C is the correct answer. Question 17, the reversible reaction shows place in a closed system of constant temperature. When the reaction has reached equilibrium, more T is added. So this is basically change in concentration. After the addition of T, which other substances increase in concentration? Well, remember, equilibrium is all about trying to maintain the constant rate of forward and backward reactions and the reactant and products concentration. And because the concentration of T increases, the equilibrium says, no, this is unacceptable. The other side has gained more of this T, and therefore it's going to have to reduce the numbers. And therefore, if T is going to get increased, the equilibrium always opposes that change. So it's going to lower the T concentration, and it's going to lower the T concentration. How, you may ask? Well, this is because it's going to go the backwards reaction, which is T plus S is equals to R plus Q plus P. And so the other substances in the left-hand side are going to increase. And that is how concentration in equilibrium works. If one side increases, the concentration of one side increases, is going to oppose the change and go the other direction and going to increase it. So the P, Q, and R are going to get increased. So C is the correct answer. Okay, question 18. In which equation is underlying substance acting as a reducing agent? Remember, a reducing agent is basically it reduces another substance, and it also itself is oxidized. When itself is oxidized, we can say that oxidation is basically the loss of electrons. Okay, or basically the gain of oxygen. So let's look at here. Let's look at A. So the carbon monoxide is going to react with iron 3 oxide. And let's look at the carbon. The carbon monoxide becomes carbon dioxide, and the FeO2O3 becomes Fe. So there is the loss of the loss of oxygen, which is reduction, and the CO turning into CO2 is oxidation. And a reducing agent itself undergoes oxidation, so therefore it is correct answer. Question 19. An aqueous solution reacts with a solid. The products are an alkaline gas, a salt, and water. What are the aqueous solution and the solid? Well, the solid has the aqueous solution. Remember, which produces an alkaline gas and water? Well, this is only possible if the reaction is done with an alkali or a base plus an ammonium salt. It's going to produce ammonia, it's going to produce a salt, and it's going to produce water as the only products. And we know ammonia is slightly alkaline, and therefore the aqueous solution has to be sodium hydroxide, and the solid has to be an ammonium salt, which is ammonium chloride. So D is the correct answer. Okay, continuing. Question 20. Butanoic acid partially dissociates in aqueous solution. Which rule about butanoic acid is correct? Since it is an acid, it has to have a pH that is less than 7. So it's not going to be 8 or 10, it's either going to be 3 or 5. But remember that it only partially dissociates, and therefore it is a weak acid. A weak acid has a higher pH than a strong one. So 5 is correct. And remember, thymophthalate is an indicator. It's just the same as phenolphthalein, but this year they changed it to thymophthalate. And it's basically the same effect. So when in acid it is colorless, in alkali it turns blue. And therefore B is the correct answer. Question 21. Copper 2 sulfate is prepared by adding excess copper carbonate to a sulfuric acid. Why is an excess of copper carbonate added? Well, this is because remember this is insoluble, and it has to be added to the sulfuric acid. And when it's added to the sulfuric acid, it is to ensure that all of the sulfuric acid has been reacted. So B is the correct answer. Question 22. Part of the periodic table is shown. Which element has 2 electrons in an outer shell and 3 electron shells? Okay, firstly, let's look at the electron shells. The electron shells is dependent on the period of the table. And the period always goes from left to right or right to left, wherever you want. It's basically a row. And the 2 electrons in the outer shell is dependent on the group that it is in, which in this case is group 2. Okay, so this is the period 1, period 2, period 3. So we have to look at this column. So A and B is not possible, only C and D is a possible answer. And then which has 2 electrons in its outer shell, and this has got to be C, because C is in the group 2, group 1, group 2. So C is the correct answer. Question 23. Elements in group 1 and group 2 show same trends in the reaction with water and their density. Which row shows the property of barium compared with calcium? Well, calcium is above barium. Remember, group 1 and group 2 are similar. Although we did not learn about the properties of group 2, they did provide us the clue with group 1. And therefore, the lower you go, the higher the reactivity, the more reactive it becomes. Therefore, barium is going to be reacting faster with calcium, so its reaction with water is going to be definitely faster. And as you go down the group, also in group 1, the density also increases, and therefore density is going to be higher, so A is the correct answer. Question 24. Which pair of compounds shows a transition element in 2 different oxidation states? Now, for this one, we have to look at, for example, Cr2O3. So the Cr charges under the oxygen, and the oxygen charges under the Cr. So we have to look at the other element's charge. Basically, this 3. So this has a chromium 3 plus, and here also we get a chromium 3 plus, and both are the same. So they do not have 2 different oxidation states. Let's look at Cu2O and CuCO3. Cu2O, remember Cu has there's one under here, so Cu has a 1 charge, Cu plus charge. And in CuCO3, remember, Cu has a copper carbonate. The carbonate ion has a 2 minus. And therefore, the Cu also have to have a plus 2, so that it will equal to 0. And therefore, the copper oxidation state is 2 plus. So they are both different. One is 1 plus and another is 2 plus, and therefore B is the correct answer. Question 25, which description of brass is correct? Remember, brass is made out of, it's a mixture of copper and zinc, and there's 30% of zinc, 70% of copper. Now, which description is correct? Well, it is a mixture of copper and zinc, so C is the correct answer. Question 26, which symbol is the metal used in manufacture of aircraft because of its low density? And this has got to be aluminum, which is A. Question 27, which substances react to form hydrogen gas? Well, calcium and water form hydrogen gas along with calcium hydroxide. And silver and dilute hydrochloride will not react because silver is very, very unreactive. And magnesium and steam, it will give you a product of magnesium oxide and hydrogen gas. So it will also produce hydrogen gas. Question number 4, zinc and dilute hydrochloric acid reacting will also give you a salt, which is ZnCl2 plus hydrogen gas. So 1, 3, and 4 are going to produce hydrogen gas. So A is the correct answer. Question 28, carbon and limestone are two raw materials used in the extraction of iron from hematite. Which type of reaction occurs when each substance is heated during the process? Remember, limestone is basically calcium carbonate, and this calcium carbonate undergoes thermal decomposition to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide, and therefore A and B is not correct, C and D. Okay, limestone is going to be that was the wrong, I looked at it wrong. So limestone is going to undergo thermal decomposition, and coke, however, is going to undergo, wait a minute, I feel like, yes, thermal decomposition, and coke is going to undergo redox reaction. Remember, coke is just carbon, and carbon in the blast furnace is going to react with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, and you can see this is a redox reaction. So B is the correct answer. Question 29. Some combustion reactions produce pollutant gases. Okay, which reactions produce a pollutant gas that is not present in clean air? Now remember that carbon dioxide is also present in clean air. It has 0.04% in clean air, and therefore 3 is not correct. Now, water in air is also present in clean air, but the carbon monoxide is not present in clean air, and therefore reaction 1 is one of the options. And reaction 4, in clean air there is no nitrogen oxide or nitrous oxides, and therefore reaction 4 is also correct. They are both not present in clean air, but present in pollutant air. So 1 and 4, which is B. Question 30. 1 mole of alkane Y produces 2072 dm³ of carbon dioxide when burned in excess oxygen. Measured at room temperature and pressure. What is X? Well, this is very easy. So basically, remember that it has given us the volume, and mole is equal to volume over molar volume, and therefore the volume given is 72 dm³, and the molar volume at room temperature is always 24, and therefore we have 3 moles of CO2. And so this Y has to react with oxygen to form 3 CO2 plus H2O. Now remember, this 3 CO2 has given us a hint of what Y could be. Because there are 3 carbons, There's only possible that the carbon of Y should also be C3. And what is C3? It has got to be propane, because propane contains C3H8. So D is the correct answer. 31. The structure of the organic compound X is shown. What is X? Well, here I would like to look at this part first. Okay, this part you can see there are 2 carbon atoms, and this means it starts with ether, eth. So, and there is a COO, and therefore it's going to be ethanoic acid. And this side is going to be a methyl group, and therefore this is going to be methyl ethanoate. Therefore C is the correct answer. 32. What is the structural formula of the compound formed in addition reaction of propene with bromine? Now there's a reaction called bromination. And in bromination, what happens is that, okay, let's just draw this out. C3H3, CH2, okay, so okay, so there's a double bond here because it is propene. This propene is going to react with bromine, and bromine remember, is a diatomic molecule, and therefore it's going to attach with this 2, and so we are going to have CH3, CHBr, CHBr, CH2Br, and therefore E is the correct answer. Question 33. Ethanol is produced in a fermentation and also by a catalyzed addition reaction involving steam, which will describe one advantage of each process. So remember, it's asking for advantage. The reactant used in fermentation is renewable. This is correct. And in the addition reaction involving steam, it is a continuous process. So that is an advantage. So A is the correct answer. 34. Carboxylic acid reacts with alcohol when warmed with an acid catalyst. Which type of substance is formed in this reaction? Well, when carboxylic acids react with alcohol, they form an ester. And the acid catalyst used here, in case you're wondering, is concentrated sulfuric acid. And therefore the substance that is formed is an ester. So B is the correct answer. 35. Nylon is formed by a condensation polymerization, which structure represents nylon. Remember, nylon is polyamide, and that means it's going to have an amide linkage. And if you don't know how the amide linkage is, it is like this. This is the amide linkage, and we have defined this in the diagram. So let's look at A. There's the amide linkage here, there's the amide linkage here, there's the amide linkage here. But one thing you will notice that it is not A, because A is a protein. And protein, their structural formula is going to be like this. Going to look like this. So on one side, they're going to contain the amine group, and the other side they're going to contain the carboxylic acid group. But for nylon is a synthetic polyamide, and therefore how we have to know its product, or the monomers that are going to form. The monomers of nylon is going to be 2 carboxylic acid group. Okay, so it's going to be like this. One has to be a carboxylic group, COOH, and the other has to be an amide group, and so it has to be like this. Okay, so let's look at B. This is the round linkage. Let's look at C. This is the correct linkage, and it also has this correct monomer that we are looking for. Therefore, C is the correct answer. Question 36. Which structures represent the repeat unit of the addition polymer from butene? Well, remember that butene, let's draw the structural formula of butene first. It's going to look like this. Okay, I am not going to bother to put, okay, never mind. Let me just put the H for your convenience. Okay, so in the repeat unit, there is no double bond. Remember, there is no double bond. The double bond is always open. And it is usually in groups of 2. Because it is the addition polymer, it has to be in groups of 2. So C single bond C, it has to be like that. So we have to turn this into this form. So C double bond. Okay, so there's going to be 2H here. Let's put 2H here. And there's going to be 1H on the second one. So the first one is done. The second one has 1H there. And the third one, we have to put this all of it together. So this is C2. How many H are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. H5. And we have to put C2H5 here. And therefore, the repeat unit has to be looking like this. And therefore, A is the correct answer. Question 37. 2 grams of powdered calcium carbonate is added to 50 centimeter cubes of hydrochloric acid. Which apparatus is used to measure these quantities of calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid? Well, for calcium carbonate, we see that they have given us that mass, and mass we have to measure it with a balance. And hydrochloric acid, we have to measure them with a burette. We could not possibly measure it with a thermometer, so A is the correct answer. 38. The diagram shows a chromatogram obtained from the colors of 3 different sweets, X, Y, and Z. How many different red dyes are present in the sweets? Okay. So there's one red, one red, one red, one red. So here they have the same RF value. And there's now an RF value. So there are only 2 different types of red dyes. And therefore B is correct. A mixture contains sand and an aqueous solution of sodium chloride, which processes are used to obtain a sample of solid sand and a sample of solid sodium chloride from the mixture. Well, firstly, solid sand, and sample of solid, we want to get a sample of solid sand and sample of solid sodium chloride. Remember, the sand is not dissolved, it is insoluble. And it is inside a solution of sodium chloride. And so to remove the sand, we would simply use a filter funnel. So we'll use filtration. We'll filter it, and then what will we do? So we get the solid sand. The other thing is to get the solid sodium chloride, we just have to evaporate it. Evaporation, which is basically crystallization. And therefore, C is the correct answer. Okay, question 40. A student tests an unknown compound M. The compound produces a lilac flame using flame test. Remember, you have to know your colors. A lilac flame is being produced because of the potassium ion. And it produces a gas which turns lime water cloudy when hydrochloric acid is added. Well, if it turns lime water cloudy, there's only one gas, which is carbon dioxide gas. And therefore, carbon dioxide gas is being produced from a carbonate ion. And therefore, when we add these two together, it has to be potassium carbonate. Therefore, D is the correct answer. Okay, we have reached the end of the video and the end of the questions. If there's any questions that you would like to ask me, leave them down in the comments below. And thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting me. Please let me know if you want me to do other variants.